Okay, so if you're a Carolina Panthers fans, we are already post Patriots preseason week 1 where we got a 17-3 loss. We are through the joint practice with the New York Jets. And of course, we're getting ready for this game this weekend on Saturday at, I believe, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hopefully you are ready for it because I certainly am. And this next man better be as well. This is the breakdown of Ejiro Evero. God, I'm so bad at it. We mess it up every time, but it doesn't matter. He is our DC here in Carolina, so he gets a breakdown because this is real coverage, home of the press conference breakdown. I am your host, Nick. Without further ado, let's jump right to it.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Nope. They roll coverage.
So just wanted to start off by welcoming you guys all here, and just really appreciative of all of our fans that have showed up for practice. It's been a great setting. The field is awesome. I think the people that put this together with the field and the setup here, it's outstanding. So a lot of thanks to them. A lot of thanks to our fans for showing up and giving us a lot of great energy for practice. It's really boosted our team, and now we're ready to go. So we're excited to continue to work every day and get better, and looking forward to playing this next preseason game against the Jets.
Hey, if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you might know somebody that does something similar to this. Dave McCandless, our head coach, starts off every press conference with a prepared speech, but this wasn't that. This was something different. This was Evero thanking the community, the fans, everybody for creating the right atmosphere so this way they can get their practices off and at an increased clip. This man is vying for a future head coaching position. It might be here in Carolina, but I think next year he definitely will get some looks. So right now he is on display for everybody. Hopefully he can put out a great defensive plan moving forwards, even with the holes at pass rush, secondary, and to be honest, just injuries in general with this team. So Evero has a big, huge road ahead of him. There's going to be a lot of bumps, but if he can come out with a winning defense, man, he's going to be a head coach someplace else next year, and definitely not with us, moving on to bigger and better things. So let's at least hear what he's got for this year.
Coach, your unit was the bright spot of last season. You lost 5 starters, but you seem to still kind of be more than a few steps ahead of the offense. What have you seen from your guys this training camp?
Well, yeah, our guys have done a great job, and yes, we did lose some starters from last year, but it's great when you have guys that came in from outside that we were familiar with, guys like Jordan Fuller and Josie Jewell and Nick Scott, Ashawn Robinson. We really don't feel like we've missed a beat. The guys are familiar with the system. I would really attribute a lot of that to the coaching staff as well. Just having everybody back from last year. We're very connected. We're on the same page. And when we look at working with the players, I think we don't miss a beat in terms of that perspective. And it's been really, really good to kind of not like start over in the spring, but really pick up where we left off at last year.
Yep, and that is the biggest difference. It is very interesting that we decided to not only retain our DC, but we retained pretty much all of our defensive staff. Not only that, we bring in guys like he said, Josie. We bring in guys like Clowney, Fuller. I'm super excited for the future of this defense, but the problem is right now we have been bitten with the injury bug. And regardless of the game plan that this man has, he is expecting rookies to fill into positions at times where we have stars, or hopefully we have stars. So he's in a very much of a pickle. I am on record as saying I thought the offense would take a step forwards and the defense a step backwards. It might be just one step each, both backwards. Offense is looking very bad. Defense is able to capitalize on the offensive failures, but at the same time, I hope they're able to do this against other people and not just Dave McCandless and not just Bryce Young. So obviously we have so much more. It's not even week 1 yet. This is still preseason, but hey, we got to see exactly where their mind is at. Obviously, it's going to be generating pass rush, and because he does, I believe it's a 3-4 setup, it's going to be more of an interesting one how we play in coverage. So that's really what I'm looking at as well. Trevin Wallace isn't really a big coverage guy, especially from his draft profile and all the breakdowns on him. So, yeah, we got some holes on this defense, but if his scheme can save us, then we could be in a really great place. We could be in a situation like last year, though, where the defense can't do anything. So you might have to do everything, Evero.
Clowney's a no entity as far as a pass rusher, but
a lot of unknowns for the rest. Where do you feel like you're going to get your pass rush this year?
Well, we feel really good about the group. Clowney, obviously, his resume speaks for itself, but the group is doing a heck of a job. And they're inexperienced, but there's a lot of talent there, and they're working hard. They're improvement. And when I look at like where we started off in the spring compared to where they are now, and how they performed in that first preseason game, we've seen a lot of growth from a lot of the young guys. And so, got to give a lot of kudos to Eku, who's done a really good job. DJ Johnson has shown improvement. Luigi shown improvement. So it's been fun to watch them develop.
Ejiro, how do you think that group will look differently when Barno and or DJ is healthy?
Yeah, when they get back, we'll continue to work with them and try to get them game ready. But they're good football players, so we're excited whenever they get back.
Hell yeah, dude. If this team was healthy, I'm not going to lie, I'm on the opposite side of my current take. I think this defense could take us 2 steps forwards. But these injuries are really affecting the offensive side of the ball, but also key players on the defensive side of the ball. Health is going to matter so much to this team this year. This could be just one of those toss-away years for Bryce, for Dave, where it's just like, man, the injury bug bit so hard that there was nothing else you could do. That's basically the only way I could see us just ignoring this year. But at the same time, I can also see us in a situation where the defense is subpar. He's gone next year. We're now having to completely do the defense, bring in a new DC with a new defensive scheme, and next year could be a whole other project. So this rebuild could be 3 or 4 years down the road and not 1 or 2.
Safety's been a strength last year during camp. What stands out about that group to you?
Well, first of all, they're all 3 of those guys are starting 3. I almost like to call them because Nick Scott is an NFL starting caliber safety. But all 3 of those guys are really sharp. They understand our system. They understand how we want to play in a deep part of the field. They're great communicators. So the entire defense as a whole feels really calm when those guys are on the field because they just put everybody at peace with their level of communication. And so it's been really, really good. We're excited about what they're going to do this year.
You've brought in a lot of guys that obviously have the background with your system, but Dane Jackson's a guy that is kind of new to you. What have you seen from him that maybe you didn't see on tape or was confirmed by the tape that you watched with him working with the first team?
Yeah, a lot of it's been confirmed. Ultra competitive. He's tough. He's a physical corner, and we want to play a physical brand of football regardless of the position, and so he really brings that element. He's competitive, and I really, really appreciate the way he's been working since day one when he got here.
Hey, I think corner is the big issue we have. Now, obviously, this is coming out post Dane Jackson injury. He was just carted off the field in the training camp today, a little earlier. And yeah, I'm sorry I'm bringing this a day late, $1 short, but hey, it's a physical corner thing, and being a physical team, it's going to require us also to be healthy. So the whole health thing is really bothering me. Obviously, we continue to add injuries with Dane Jackson being carted off. So I'm concerned. But hopefully, again, this guy can point us in the right direction. That depth really helps us if Eku Leota is the 2 or 3. So I'm really hopeful for that, but that might still be 5 games away to actually see that fully developed team or fully healthy team for that matter.
You've always been very run-stop oriented, at least in philosophy. How does this group maybe improve that outlook over last year's group?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it starts with the NFL football. It's we got to be able to stop the run because when teams can run the football against you, they dictate play action pass, the boots, and they're just so much harder to defend. And so that's always going to be the emphasis. Like where we are right now, obviously Derek is a heck of a player. We love what Shites Tuttle does. Love the addition of Ashawn. And then when you look at the growth of the younger guys, like Nick Thurman, LeBron Ray, all of those guys, it's been really a lot of good growth there.
How's it been working with Canales, and how you guys' relationship evolved since the start of training camp?
No, it's been good. It's evolved because we didn't really know each other that well, and now we've become good friends. And he's good to he's great to work with. I think he does a great job of connecting with not only the staff but with the players and everybody in the building. He's very open to ideas. He's very he knows what he wants to do. He's got a plan. He's organized, but he's always open to listen. And so even though things may not go your way, you could appreciate the fact that he's considering every option. He's considering what you're saying, and so from that standpoint, it's been good. And I think the product will show for it.
I would agree. So many people have said that the buy-in comes from not only the ownership, but everybody on down the chain. Dave Canales seems to have the buy-in of everybody in the organization, but it is, can he maintain that hold on them through the season into the next offseason? And the one person, can he make David and Nicole Tepper happy? That is going to be the decision for next year. If he comes out here and wins 4 games, his job is in their hands. So he needs to try and build the best possible culture with enough people pushing behind him that the owner doesn't have the ability to fire him. It would put an uproar amongst the organization. So I think that's where Dave's kind of trying to position himself. It's obviously great to hear that they're getting to know each other. But like I've said at the beginning, I do believe that Evero goes someplace else in the future.
You mentioned before, from a competitive standpoint, the challenge of facing off against your defense. Where have you seen that show up in terms of a Dave Canales-inspired offense?
Yeah, no, I've said this before. It's playing against them, those 2 times last year. He gives us a lot of credit, but we got to give him a lot of credit because they're hard to play against, and all of the different things that they do offensively with the formations, the motions, the player deployment, all of that stuff is hard to handle. And so I think it's just all of us making each other better.
Yes, it does. But real quick, the one thing that Dave Canales is known for is committing overly to the run. Evero's specialty is run stopping. So he's able to put Dave in a specific position because of their run stopping ability. That is great for us. That tells us we're not going to have a whole lot of rushers against us, but it's going to be that secondary that really gets tested after that.
Out there today, how did he look out there, and what's he had when you get him back?
Yeah, he looked good. He's picked up where he left off at, and the one thing you don't have to worry about with Shaq, whether he's rehabbing or out there playing, is that he's going to be working his butt off. And so he didn't look. I didn't see anything rushed or anything like that from that standpoint.
You guys have practiced 3 days in a row, but can you clarify why you guys took off pads and maybe did install in the middle of practice?
I don't know that answer to that. I just do as I'm told, and so that's the plan the head coach wanted, and so I just went with it.
So with that said, though, you guys had kind of a dominant showing in that, and Damani Richardson making some plays. What have you seen from like the younger group, Trevin Wallace, Mike Barrett, those type of guys?
Yeah, I think it's, again, a credit to a lot of the coaches on our staff, all the coaches on our staff. They're doing a great job of developing these young guys and pouring into them. And I just love the fact that every one of them are playing a lot faster than when they first showed up at, which is obviously what you want. But like the growth that these guys are making, the communication level, the anticipation level, all of those things is just really speeding up. And so Trevin has done a really good job. Obviously, Damani has done a great job, and he had some splash plays today. So it's been fun to watch those guys develop.
Yeah, because to be honest, Wallace is going to be a multi-year rebuild or a build-up of him. Barrett will be the same way. Those guys, if Trevin is in the starting lineup a lot, that's going to tell us that we don't have the depth there. No offense, he's not ready for the NFL yet. He needs a full year, at least, of development, hopefully 2, before he's able to become something more. But right now, I don't want to depend on him. I'd rather depend on veterans and some guys that know the playbook, and not only that, can read the gaps properly, because that was one of the big critiques of Wallace in his draft whole profile. So.
A PBU or a pick, the deep one?
They're all picks. If it's questionable, it's a pick.
In terms of the corner spot, do you feel like Dane has really solidified that other spot opposite JC?
I don't want to make any declarations. I really, really like what I'm seeing from Dane, but I like what I'm seeing from Mr. Jameson. I like what I'm seeing from Mr. Boodle. So all of those guys are really doing a good job. All of those guys are really developing, and we just got to see how this plays out.
DJ, you mentioned Shaq a second ago. When you lost him so early last year, is that position the hardest thing to try to replace on the fly in your defense?
It is from the mental standpoint for certain. I think just being involved in the run game, the pass game, and NFL offenses aren't what they used to be, where things were stagnant and you just lined up and played versus stagnant formations. Like everything is moving, everything's happening fast. Your adjustments are they're not giving you any time to think through your adjustments. And so from a mental standpoint, those guys have to be on point. And there's so much training that goes into getting those guys ready to play that position. And so it's always devastating when you lose a player to that position. But from that standpoint, we feel really good about our depth this year. Obviously with Shaq and Josie, and then Trevin and Claude behind those guys, and so those guys are all developing well.
Man, if that is not a future head coach, I don't know what is.
Him and Josie play off of each other.
Well, they're both experienced in the system. They're both experienced NFL players. There isn't a lot of things that has happened that is going to fool them. And so from that standpoint, they do a good job of anticipating and talking to each other and alerting each other. And they've developed a good relationship, what I think is helping them on the field as well. So.
No starters played in the preseason game. I know you have the joint practices coming up. How do you weigh the importance of maybe getting a good joint practice in versus getting reps during the preseason games?
Yeah, the joint practice is really important just from the standpoint of, like, even though you decide to play your guys in a preseason game, you're never going to play them enough to get them really conditioned for a game. And so from that standpoint, the joint practice, I think they're going to get 50, 60 snaps. They're going to get a lot, like, game-type conditioning, and we're still going to get the physicality that we want. So it's going to be really good.
EJ, building off that, what are the advantages of not playing your defensive starters in a preseason game? Can you expound on that?
Well, I think it's giving the younger guys that you don't have as much exposure to, giving them opportunities to show what they can do, gathering some information on them. Obviously, you want to limit the risk for injury, so all of those things factor in.
Brought up the staff and teaching guys. Tim got interviewed for a DC job. Pete's been on some short lists. Uli got a promotion. What about that group makes them so good at working together and potentially working individually?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because the defensive staff is still an all-star staff.
I think it starts off with that they're all great guys. They're team guys. They're about their players. Every one of our coaches pours into their players. And so that's the starting point. They're sharp. I think on our staff, you can make the argument that every one of our position coaches has a chance to be a coordinator soon. They're all very, very talented people. Obviously, Todd Wash has done it before. But we got a great group of coaches. They're great people. They connect with their players. They're smart. They can all think outside of just their position. They can think globally, which is always a good thing. And so we got a great group that always has my back. And so I'm very, very fortunate.
You and Nate are pretty close. You guys get to see each other again this week. What do you like about going up against his defense? Going up against his offense. It's going to be great. I think our relationship will allow us to really collaborate in terms of we're not worried about winning the practice or anything. He needs to get certain things worked on. I need to get certain things worked on, and so our relationship will definitely help us bridge those gaps.
How did you think?
It's an interesting way to say it. I'm hoping that iron sharpens iron, good defensive coach against good offensive coach. But again, I think the personnel on both sides is just not good enough. Even now, I don't think that our offense is measurably so much better than it was last year. I think the names changed, but I don't know that I expect Dave to get Bryce up to, say, 3,600 passing yards. If he does, great. But I'm expecting him to play every game and all that other stuff. I'm expecting him to not get sacked as much. There's so many other things that go into that offense. Whereas this defense, we know that's a big problem with ours. We know the cluster injuries at pass rush. We know the injuries now at secondary, or the injury history with Horn. Our middle linebackers, we have Trevin Wallace, who is just going to hope and pray that he's going to learn the NFL game. And Josie, who, yes, he knows the system, especially working with Evero in, I believe, Denver previously. So there's some familiarity with some of these guys. But at the same time, it needs to be put out on the field against other people. So this Jets practice is going to be the barometer of how our season is going to be. If we go out there and get smoked on both ends, man, it's going to be a long year, and I am not excited. But I'm obviously hoping that not only Evero, but Dave is able to overcome the Jets' offense and defense. So hopefully you guys can pray along with me.
Practice with them went last year from a defensive standpoint.
I thought it was really good. Again, like we talked about, we get to see a different offense, see different people. Just going against Aaron Rodgers too, just that level of communication and having to disguise everything and really be on point on what we're doing, because any weakness, anything that's not right, he's going to point it out. And so that was great work, and then very invaluable for us.
The trend now seems to be more emphasis on those than the joint practices and the preseason games. Do you think that?
I can't hear this question.
I don't know if I have the answer to that, but I certainly enjoy going against other people in the practice setting because, like I talked about it, there's never going to be a time where you're going to play out your starters, your main guys in a preseason game that much, right? And so just the standpoint of like, okay, we could go out on Thursday, we can have 50-plus plays for our starters. They could get a lot of good work. They could see a different opponent. So from that standpoint, I love it.
Was there a play? I know it ended up only being one practice, but that Aaron made that you were like, I'm glad our guys saw that today because that's not something we probably would have seen, against another quarterback.
Yeah, and there's one specific play that happened down in the red zone where we were trying to show split safety, and our linebackers were aligned as a post safety look, and he just walked up to the line of scrimmage as they broke the huddle. He's like, all right, that safety's coming down. All right, they're rotating over here. The front's going to be here, and he's just pointing everything out. And it was just like, okay, that's an example of why we emphasize the disguise so much, right? And it's not just a safety sitting back. If those linebackers aren't tied into it, as the front isn't tied into it, the elite guys are going to point that out. And so, I just think that we can talk about it all we want, but having a guy up there literally out of the huddle, he's pointing everything out. I mean, I think that really speaks volumes to the players. All right, thank you all.
So, I don't know, but did that seem like maybe there's going to be an Ejiro Evero? Oh God, I butcher his name so hard. I always want to do it backwards. I always want to go Ejiro, but it's Ejiro Evero. He has so much potential. That might have just been a little bit of his snippet application per se. If Aaron Rodgers decides to stay and play football next year, and if Saleh is gone, that was hey man, I think that you're so great. You could absolutely dissect defenses. Hey, I'll take care of the defense and let me help you out. So could we see a scenario where Evero ends up as a head coach of the New York Jets? Yeah, absolutely. I could see him being the head coach of a few places, the New Orleans Saints being one of them as well. So I think there's so much potential. I'm super excited to see our starters, not only offense, but especially defensively in this joint practice against the Jets. Not only are we watching a future head coach, we're watching a masterclass when it comes to talking about people, when it comes to praising others, and when it comes to being just a good guy. So I'm super excited to do more breakdowns on Evero. Make sure you come by in only one place, Roll Coverage, right here, home of the press conference breakdown. I'm making sure to cover all of the NFC South with videos to come out starting tomorrow. But if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, I've been making them all year. But otherwise, make sure you subscribe. My name is Nick, host of Roll Coverage. Hopefully you have a great rest of the day. Peace.